Hello and welcome to Dr. Dav Knows All the Things. We're so glad you're here. Each week we sit down with Dr. Dav and unpack recent sermons and dive deeper into scripture, theology, and explore theological themes that shape our walk with Jesus. If you have time, stick around. Today's episode might just be the encouragement you need.
Oh, I'm ready.
Well, Dr. Dav,
Yes.
you know all the things.
According to the sign that I do. I think it's important at the outset that anybody, that our worldwide audience, and we should wait for all the guys to click on, for our worldwide audience to be like, hey, what the beans, what kind of a title is Dr. Dav Knows All the Things? What kind of a, guy would say that? My wife named it.
Yep.
She described it because my wife is, she's really into me. But she also says, how come you know about all the things I don't care about? But hopefully we talk about things that you care about today.
I know that I care about the things that you care about.
Well, thank you.
I'm glad that your wife is into you. It's a good problem to have. I mean, I hope my wife is into me. Well, now that we got the awkward stuff out of the way.
Do it. Dance.
Well, I like that you know everything. I really do consider you to be the smartest person I know.
Here's the thing. When you don't know anything, you ask a lot of questions.
Yeah.
And so you ask a lot of questions over the course of your life, and you pick up a few things.
Mm-hmm.
And then you compound that by doing a lot of dumb things. And then if you do enough dumb things, you learn like, oh, don't do that.
Don't do that again.
And so I think part of my testimony is I've asked a lot of questions. As a matter of fact, thank you for asking. You might ask, hey, Dr. Dav, yeah, what is the only trophy you've ever won in your lifetime in a sporting thing, in sports? Did you ever play sports, Dr. Dav? Oh, yes, I did.
Did you ever play sports, Dr. Dav?
I sure did.
Yeah, okay.
What do you think the first sport I played was?
Well, I know it to be football.
Absolutely false, unless you're European.
Okay, then
There's
I
your
have
hint.
no idea. Oh, soccer?
Soccer, that's correct. I played soccer like every good Anglo-Saxon child in the Pacific Northwest.
That's right.
Okay, I played first grade soccer.
Yep.
Right, and at the end of our first grade soccer team, we all went. What do you do at the end?
You go, did anyone get an award? Food? I don't know.
Yes. What do you do? Where do you go? Sound guy. Where do you go at the end? Pizza.
Oh.
Again, continuing with the white Anglo-Saxon pattern, you play soccer, then you
And
have
then you
pizza.
go pizza, yep.
You go to the pizza parlor, and then you sit around, and then they order a bunch of, what are these, trophies? And they pass out the trophies for most valuable, highest, most inspirational, most this, most that. And they were not getting to me. And I was thinking, oh, man, mine's going to be good. They're clearly waiting for, like, most something.
Mm-hmm.
I was ready for whatever it could be. And they finally, at the end, they said, and our last trophy goes to Brian Davenport, and this trophy is for most inquisitive.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, I don't even know what that means, but it must be awesome. And then my mom was like, yeah, that means like you asked the most questions. That's the award that I got, was the guy who asked them. But that's how you learn, and that's how you eventually figure things out.
I actually do feel like I do that. I don't feel like I know enough, and so I just ask a bunch of questions.
Well, why don't we ask the text?
There you go.
Speaking of questions.
What
questions can we bring to the text?
Well, I have a question. Oh boy. We had a couple weeks ago, you talked about the healing at Bathsheba. That's that, right? No, Bethesda. Nope, Bethesda. There it is. Bathsheba is a person.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, okay.
Asking questions. Bethesda.
That healing was not what she needed.
No.
Yikes. She needed a robe. Anyway, a little garment.
Okay, Bethesda.
She needed curtains.
Yeah.
That's what Bathsheba needed, was less bath, more curtain. Anyway, yeah. All right. People be naming their churches Bathsheba. Well, I'm going there. Eee. All right.
Oh boy. Bethesda. All these B words in the Bible. Bethesda. The healing at Bethesda. You talked about that a couple weeks ago.
We did. Mm-hmm.
And there's a significant portion where the man, after being healed, was instructed to pick up his mat and go, walk,
mat and
go. And the Pharisees were pretty upset by that.
Upset by it.
Can you help me understand why they would be upset at someone just walking? Like, I
It
understand.
wasn't that they were walking, although they could have been problematic if it was walking further than a farlong. But the reason is he was carrying his mat. Ooh, what we were looking for is, why was he carrying his mat, Alex, for 200? Because carrying the mat was, now that the Sabbath says you shall do no work, and then that's in the Decalogue. And then in Leviticus and in the other texts, remember those texts are all essentially commentary explaining and applying the Decalogue. And so there's all the Sabbath stuff is like what they could or couldn't do. And so the Sabbath says you shall do no work, and it actually does delineate some things, but you won't find in Leviticus thou shalt not carrieth thy matteth.
Right.
Because what you have and then what you have on top of the law and the prophets with the Pharisees is you have the oral tradition, or the tradition of the elders, or the Talmud. You have a written Torah, and then you have an oral Torah. They claim that the oral Torah is concurrent with the actual Torah. It's not true. It can't be. But they hold tightly to this tradition. Basically, you have the Torah here, and then you have the oral Torah here, which they say is a fence around the Torah, so that it is a fence that's built around the Torah so that you don't actually break the law. So these are laws about the law, so you don't break the law. And that's why they say, they have 600 and some odd, whatever. So there's a bunch of tradition. You even hear you even hear the Pharisees say, "Why do you break the tradition of of the fathers?" He says, "Why do you transgress the commands of God for the sake of your tradition?" He switches it around. Basically, he's saying that you've added so much tradition that you have maligned, you've perverted the purpose of the law. So the purpose of Sabbath was rest. And to honor God, not to punish a guy for carrying his mat home, right? And so that's beside the point. So that's the thing. So what they were saying, hey, you're not supposed to carry that. You're breaking the Sabbath. That's what all they saw was a dude carrying a mat. So that's why they were mad. He was carrying his mat on the Sabbath.
Would you consider that more of a legalistic view then, where people are adding maybe the tradition to so much so over the years?
I would call it a perverse view. I would call it a perversion of truth.
Okay.
That's why Jesus wasn't about it. It wasn't just legalistic, like applying. Legalistic would be an overly applying actual law at the wrong time.
Oh, okay.
Okay. But this wasn't overly applying an actual law. This was a perversion. This was weaponizing what they would call Scripture. So let's just call it that. This was weaponizing rules out of fear. Because now were they just wicked, horrible, awful people who wanted to control everybody? They get a bad rap. They were so motivated, they were so consumed by fear of transgression and so zealous about protecting the nation so that Messiah could eventually come and they could be saved. But they were at this high point of protection, and that fear motivated them to be very controlling. Now, and therein lies a good warning for us that we aren't people who are motivated or moved primarily by fear, but by faith.
Right.
And faith is not a fear-based thing. Faith does not seek to control. Faith seeks to serve and to surrender. But anyway, so that's why they said don't pick up your mat. Don't carry that.
Yeah, it's just I just find it interesting. Well, I don't. Maybe I'm speaking from ignorance, but it does feel like human nature to have good intentions. I want to do something so well, or with the best of intentions, like the Pharisees. They don't want to break the law.
Right.
So they're going to stick to the law. They really want to honor God and not break the law. But by their fervor in not breaking the law, they end up creating a bunch of other ones almost, or what you said, perverting the...
Yeah, it's a very short path when things are not, based in faith. It's a very short path. What happens is what may have been, in some ways, sincere zeal for the law or for the Lord quickly becomes zeal for me, for pride, and for image, and for control. It's a very short path to this is right, I'm right, everyone must do what I say is right.
Right.
It's a very, very short path. And that's where Jesus enters this world of super intense control.
Yeah, interesting. How do you feel the response would be? I guess what would be the common or the current day thing? I mean, how is that happening now? Like, do you feel that the same thing is happening now? I mean, what would be the modern day equivalents?
People ask that a lot. Those are kinds of questions. They want to take that. They want to. It's a pretty common thing. They want to find out they want to play pin the tail on the Pharisee. Like, who's the Pharisee today? I would be cautious about that, and I think it's the faster thing, or the more healthy thing, instead of trying to play pin the tail on the Pharisee, is to play who is you in the text, and say where is the text challenging you? Where, if you're honest, where are you finding yourself like, oh, wait a minute, how much am I? Is there a desire to control? Like, for instance, they didn't know anything about this guy's life. They knew nothing about him. They knew nothing about his history, and they had an immediate self-righteous reaction to something that they perceived. And that's where you go, oh, wait a minute, where am I how quickly might I respond to something out of thinking that someone is treating people like they're one-dimensional, or treating a circumstance like I totally understand it, and a quick evaluation and a quick attempt to control or to fix. Anyway, I think people should be cautious, because once we start saying, well, who are the Pharisees, then we start empowering ourselves to just play like those video games where the ducks go by and you just shoot. Then we just start shooting at people, and then we find ourselves being the very people we're trying to shoot. Bars.
Well, you said it, so I don't have to.
Yeah.
No, that's very interesting. I'm. Well, I mean, it's one of those things. Like, I want to do right. I want to do well. I want to honor God. I want to honor people in my life and all the things. And then one thing that has really helped me, and I don't know how long ago you said this, but it was maybe a message or something, but you had said, like, just imagine that Jesus was sitting right here. Imagine that he was right here, and he was looking at you, and you were saying what you're saying to this person, or you're telling, imagine that he was there. And that just shaped everything. Because even, the advice you gave me when I first got married about I'd rather be loving than right. I sit there and I go, man, if Jesus were here and he were to ask me, like, oh, well, why did you, I don't know, the random example, why did you choose to go and work those extra hours instead of playing with your kids or whatever? And I was like, well, Jesus, I was trying to, do stuff for you. I work at a church and I blah, 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 blah. And I really find myself going, is Jesus going to be happy that I neglected my kids to come here and do ministry for Jesus? Or is he going to want me to participate and be present with my family and be present with my kids? And that just has helped me. I ask myself that question a lot about, like, well, if he was here right now, would he be upset at the guy for carrying the mat, or would he be talking to the Pharisees and saying, you're looking at something good and making it about all of this extra stuff?
Well, here's what's curious is, if we go back to the text, Jesus doesn't say either one of those things. First of all, he tells the guy to take up his mat and go home. But the Pharisees want to talk to him about, carrying his mat or not, and he's like, well, I don't even know who said to do it. And then we have Jesus once again saying something that has nothing to do with what we're talking about.
Right.
He says, see, you've been made well. Now,
go and sin no more.
Yeah, now stop. The NIV says, stop sinning or something worse might happen.
Right.
Yikes. And so, no matter what Jesus is going to consistently, the gravity of his presence is going to consistently bring our conversation higher. And whenever we find ourselves in a tailspin or circling around, when our conversations just starts to spiral, that's when we just pause and think, probably if we're spiraling, it's because we've lost traction and we've lost sight. And so Jesus he's always going to take our conversation to the place of more light and more truth, and where things are more meaningful. It's going to have a more meaningful conversation rather than like chasing rabbits or something like that. And so, yeah, and that story is significant. There's a lot of things, a lot of interactions with that Jesus has, because he asks the man, do you want to be made well? And it's almost like a silly question. Like, why would Jesus ask that question? Do you want to be? One might say, well, if of course he wants to be made well, otherwise he wouldn't be there. There are people that write stuff like, well, some people just want to be sick. That may or may not be true. There are people who have those, but that's not what John's after there. John is revealing that most of the time, Jesus, when he engages people, he wants to connect with their affections. He wants to connect with their will. So one of the things that we said that week was, when he says, "Do you want to get well?" He's not calling upon the man's willpower, but his will. And you might say, well, what's the difference between willpower and will? Willpower is me striving. when Jesus says, do you want to get well? He's asking me if I'll. Will is about my surrender. So faith doesn't strive, it surrenders. It surrenders to Jesus. So in that moment, is basically he's wanting to pull hope out of the man, but also bring him to a place where he surrenders to Jesus. Because up until that time, as in his own words, he's entirely caught up with with the circumstance, with the water, with the stirring, with the waves, and all that. But Jesus, when he comes to us, he's going to call us to a place of surrender every time, to surrender to obedience, not striving, not like, do you have it? Do you have what it takes? That's Jesus didn't ask the man, well, do you have what it takes? Right. Do you want this bad enough? Jesus isn't the gym trainer saying you got to want it bad enough. Yeah. No, will you completely surrender? That's what Jesus asks, and that's the place of faith. It's surrender, and the place where we say, yeah, Jesus, I want what you want, and I surrender to what you want.
Yeah, I guess I maybe get caught up in what that looks like practically. If I put myself in the man's shoes, do you want to get well? I probably would be like, well, yeah. I mean, but I almost feel like that's not the question that Jesus would. Even in the do you want to be well, to what you said, he's asking for his surrender. He's asking. So what does that look like practically? How can we? If I even now to your call at the end of your message, are you ready? Are you willing? Are you so? Well, if someone says, yeah, I am, I just, what's next? Like, what does that look like practically to be ready, to surrender?
Well, here's the thing. People love those questions. And then we come back to the text, and the frustrating part of the text is that's not there. It's just a yes or no question. Are you? And then he said, yes. And the rest of it was up to Jesus. He didn't say, well, yeah, what do you want me to, then what does that look like? He said, Jesus answers. He doesn't even wait for the man to answer, of course. The man answers wrong. But somewhere Jesus finds a glimpse of an open door, and then Jesus tells him what to do next. And that's really what surrender is. Surrender isn't coming with a set of negotiations or now what. It's I'm coming and I say yes to Jesus, and then I do whatever he says next. That's what surrender has to be. It can't be like, well, I'm willing to come, but you got to tell me, well, what about whatever. Nope, I say yes. And that's the text. That's the simplicity of faith. And somewhat then the frustrating thing is that whenever people say yes to Jesus, they just have to do whatever he says to do next. And so that's what it is. What practically is, all right, say yes, and then do the next thing. Obey Jesus.
That's good. Okay. How do you feel like this applies to marriage? How would you specifically apply this? Yeah, we're going off a little bit here, but per surrender, per just those things about surrendering to Jesus and those kinds of things. Like I've been having conversations with Gabby about how we can serve each other. Gabby's my wife, by the way. Oh, yeah, Gabby's my wife, by the way. Sure. I forget that people don't just immediately know who I am.
Worldwide audience.
Yeah, our worldwide audience. No, I mean, Gabby and I have been having conversations about like what it looks like to surrender to even to each other, what it looks like to in service to each other, and. Should I be correcting?
I'm like that guy on the Tom Cruise movie.
I thought you were getting ready to correct me.
You're just switching gears on me. That's
switching gears a little bit.
I'm switching the Rolodex.
Yeah, okay. So I guess I have been really trying to serve. We've been trying to serve. We've been finding that making time for each other, making time for the family, and all those kinds of things are working, and it's all good and great. But as a husband who is supposed to surrender first to Jesus and then lead my family. How can I take this? Are you ready? Are you willing? Are you, is this complete off topic here? Is there a way to apply? I mean, of course there is a way to apply this, but how would you apply this, I guess, to marriage, to relationship, doesn't have to be marriage. It could be relationship with people. It could be.
Well, let's pick something. If you're going to go with marriage, let's stick with it.
Okay.
And this is where, we would first of all exercise some degree of caution. We would not go, hey, I'm going to teach on marriage, and this passage is about marriage. It's not about marriage.
No, sure.
Okay, it's about being made whole and responding to Jesus wholly. But there are some also truths. There are some pastoral implications in the story that we recognized. Like Jesus asks him, do you want to be made whole? And the man says two things. He says, I have no one to help me, and whenever I try to get in, somebody else gets in before me. And those were probably legitimate complaints and legitimate concerns that he had. And so we don't want to over metaphorize it, but we want to recognize that's how he literally felt. But we can hear, because in John's use of poetry, or not poetry, but in the way that he uses literature itself, he brings out, John is good at revealing the human condition. And whenever people talk to Jesus in the book of John, especially in these signs, it's an actual conversation. But if we listen carefully, I think I don't know, I haven't talked to John, but I can hear the expression of the human condition in their voices.
Right.
And so Jesus asks him, do you want to be made well? Do you want this to go right? And so if we were going to, now we got to flex our metaphorical muscles. But you're saying, Jesus says to you something like, Austin, do you want to be a good husband? And your response, instead of saying yes, if we're following the pattern of the story, you say, well, Gabby doesn't do what I want. Or man, I wish I could, but. And so instead of answering Jesus, you talk about that, like the man, you say, I have no one to help me. So, I'm a victim, or things are against me, and then somebody else gets in front of me. So it's someone else's fault, someone else's behavior, someone else is doing something that I'm saying or I'm claiming is preventing me from just obeying Jesus. But Jesus didn't ask me whose fault it was. Jesus didn't ask me where I'm going. So when Jesus talks to me, and I say that actually, but also metaphorically, it's not like he sits in my living room. But when the Lord says to me via the Scriptures and through the confirmation of the Spirit, Dav, are you going to be a good husband? If I say to him, well, I'd really like to be, Lord, but you know Mrs. Dav, you know how she is. He just like he didn't answer the man about the water, he didn't pay any attention to that.
Right.
He is not concerned about me saying, well, Lord, I really would like it if she was, nicer. Maybe that's a conversation for him to have with her, or for us to have with him, or at a prayer meeting, or whatever. Sure. It's not like, couples can't work things out. But when Jesus is talking to you, he is going to say, look, if you want to be a good husband, all you have to do is say yes. You follow me. And just like he said to the disciples, you follow me and I'll make you fishers of men. That's where we apply it. You follow me and I'll make you a good husband. You follow me and I'll make you a good father. You follow me and I'll make you a good pastor, a good manager, a good plumber, or whatever. You follow me and I'll make you. That's the whole point. So how do I do that? You follow Jesus.
Yeah.
How do I be a good husband? Follow Jesus. He will make you a good fill in the blank.
Yeah. This isn't for me. I have
a
model for great marriages.
You're the model? Oh.
No. It's been modeled to me. Great marriages. By you and Mrs. Dav.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure.
But I definitely heard even in that I'm how can I be a good husband? I've never seen it done before.
Then you follow Jesus.
Yeah, right. And so then the answer to that is just
you follow Jesus. Now, you might say, well, how do I follow Jesus? You follow Jesus by having, first of all, a surrendered, personal, consecrated, relationship with Jesus. You follow Jesus as a Christian. And then no one follows Jesus alone. Right. So you become a part of his his flock, as it were, and you look for footprints going before you. You start imitating the lives of people around you, those that are doing it right, even if they're not doing it perfect. Hebrews chapter 13. Remember your leaders who spoke the word of God to you. Consider the outcome of their way of life and imitate their faith. So you look at how have people done it right? What decisions have they made? What principles can I observe? And you do that. But so you follow Jesus, and then you never follow him alone.
Okay. Well, I'd like to switch gears off of the John topic.
Oh,
because I have a couple of things that I'd like to get your thoughts on.
All right, I'm ready.
So you have made me the associate pastor of media ministries here at Heritage.
For it.
Yes. Wait, was it for or of?
Well, if you're of it, that means there's something. It's fine. It's a lot of words.
I was trying to go with what you were saying.
It's all good.
For
you're associate pastor here, and you do media,
and I do media.
Good.
Yeah. So I'm responsible for everything that you see.
Yes. If it's a screen,
if it's an
a
image,
piece of paper,
yeah,
it's
piece
words.
Of paper. Yep.
You see, yeah.
There is a. I don't know if it's trend, but there's a. I'm going to read this. Actually, I want to get your thoughts on this very, very specifically. But the idea of worship production.
Oh,
so just production in general, media production, the whole thing. So we at Heritage, I would argue that I think that we do things in a very tasteful way, I would say. We're not distracting. We try not to be overly produced and all of the things. But what would you say your thoughts are on the fog machine and the LED wall?
Moses and Abraham. We're starting. Okay.
Yep.
I didn't know if we were going to fog machines.
Okay. Would you like me to just read this?
Okay, I'm ready for it.
Quote, but God doesn't need all that. Church isn't supposed to look like a concert.
Not a concert.
Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it.
You're right. God doesn't need lights.
Are you still reading?
Yes.
Oh.
He doesn't need haze.
Is this someone who's talking?
This is
People
a
that we don't
person
know?
that I came across. And I was on social media, and I read it, and because I'm the media pastor, my feed is like all media. But
all right, so these are people talking, and you're going to tell me what they're saying.
Yes.
Gotcha.
And they are trying to advocate for church. Well, I don't want to say they're advocating for church to look like a concert, but it's what he says here. He doesn't need perfectly timed video transitions or crazy camera movements. But here's what I've learned. God didn't need David's harp either. Yet he delighted in it all, because worship has never been about what God needs. It's about what we need. It's about giving us a way to express the inexpressible love burning inside of us. So then he goes on to say, when that lighting director hits a cue that moves someone to tears, when that video transition creates a moment where someone finally feels seen, that's not distraction. That's a creative worship. That's a creative worshiping through their craft with everything God has put inside of them. So to take that and then use that as a justification for why we need lights and haze machines, and then you go down the list.
Haze?
It's to create. It's a video.
I thought haze is what you got when you went to college. That was bad.
We're recreating that in the room. So
you're creating hazing?
No, but they're fog machines essentially, and they fill the room with fog or haze, so that when the lights hit it, it makes it look. It's very aesthetically pleasing, sure, but it's a concert thing. This is a main thing for concerts and stuff. And so then there's the argument that why are we doing this in church? And so his argument is, well, we're doing this because people need it, or his argument was that we're doing that for people. We're not doing it for God.
Yeah. How about? Well, I don't know. Here's the thing. I don't know. I don't know. Even your question, I know you didn't mean it, but you're like, let's use that. Whenever you use a virtuous principle and say call it a justification for, then if you're creating a leverage for, well, we need more lights and more sound and more color and more smoke because I think that once again Jesus would call us a little bit higher, would change the conversation, and say that what we should do is we should do our best in to understand what is supposed to happen ideally in a corporate. When we say worship, we're talking about worship in song. We're talking about people lifting their voice in song together, and that is the tehillah and the yada. That's the lifting of the hands, and the tehillah is the singing. Psalm 22. Surely you are enthroned upon the praises. The song. You're literally God sits on the songs of His people. Oh, Shama, right? So the idea is there is something spiritual, there is something neurological, sociological, psychological, theological, but there's things. There is a combination of things that are happening when people sing. That is at 100% core raw Bible. People should sing together to God.
Amen.
So that's it.
Yeah.
So you start with that, and then however that finds its expression in the culture and the season and the even the continent where that comes from. For years, people were songs come out of people's raw experience of God. They experience God and they write songs about it and they give it back. Furthermore, the expression of song comes out of their own frame of reference, who they are, and so they write. So in the late 19-teens, all the way through some of the early 40s. The Christian songs, they sounded like we were going to war. Well, because we were.
Right.
That sounded like onward Christian soldiers, we are going to do some fighting. And because that was the emotional, psychological template of the people, and that's what came out in song.
Yeah.
So that didn't make that a more virtuous or a more canonical presentation of singing. It came out of their hearts and who they were. They didn't, and then you talk about the fact that you have the Roaring '20s and what was going on in the '20s, and the licentiousness and the embrace of lax morality. Well, the church is going to express itself either in a way that's going to try to, at the time, they're gonna separate themselves, and so the singing and the expression to the Lord was going to look much different. They weren't going to be dressing like them, whatever they were, Hoosiers or losers or hussies or whatever. They were going to look like that. They were going to dress like that. They were going to look and sing differently, and so they did all the way through. And then of course, by the time you get to now, things change a little bit. Now you get to the late '60s and early '70s, and people are there's a rejection. The Vietnam War has created a whole bunch of we can't stand the institution, man, and don't trust anybody over 30, man, and so there's a whole who are we and who do we want to be? It gave rise to the hippie movement, which came out of almost nowhere. But concurrent with that was the Jesus people movement, and they're and so these same people that were looking for meaning began to find meaning in faith and in the experience of Christ. And so they began to give expression to that, with the whole Christian music industry came out of the Jesus movement, right? And but their expression was flavored by their experience. And so it was folk music, and there was a lot of feeling, and there was a lot of kumbaya, and it was holy smokes, we can play the guitar and not just the piano and the organ. So of course that's what they did. Hippies didn't have jobs or lives, so they played the guitar all day and whatever. So they played the guitar, and then they had drums, and then they had electric stuff. That was new. Were they trying to emulate culture? Not necessarily, but they were bringing the Lord an expression of who they were in their life, and that was their language, their dialect, and so they were bringing that. Out of that comes this massive music industry. That's cool. That happens. That influences Christian music all through the decades. Now, then you start introducing other doctrinal stuff like. It really happened in the 70s, but it came to a head in the late 80s and 90s, the seeker movement, which said, hey, if we want people to feel comfortable in church, church shouldn't look or feel like church. It should feel like everywhere else they feel comfortable with. And that became ingrained, that you repeat something enough, it becomes ingrained. Yeah. So it became ingrained that if we want people to feel comfortable in church, it needs to feel like when they go to the Moda Center. And that way they'll feel comfortable in church. That particular line of thought remains.
Okay.
It's embedded, it's ingrained. And I'm not saying it's right, and I'm not saying it should be wholly rejected. I'm just saying this idea of let's have lights, let's dim them, let's do this, let's do that. Old school people will say, oh, you're just trying to imitate the world. You're trying to love Satan. I don't know if people are loving Satan. But they are thinking, well, we want to create an environment that feels like what people do when they go do the same thing. I do push back on that. I say, I think church should feel different. Yeah. But it shouldn't feel awkward or impossible. So we shouldn't make it impossible. We should build an easy connection. The songs that we sing should be singable. They should, their content should be focused. But it's never crossed my mind to think, it would really help this worship services if we added some smoke. I don't know about that. Yeah. But I also don't think I'm going to go on that's a hill I'm going to die on. Oh man, if you introduce a fog machine, you just denied the glory of God. I don't think they want to deny that. I think that's going to boil down to preference and to personalities and to certain contexts, and urban areas are going to sing different than rural areas. I think the important thing is that you keep it, you go back to the book and say, what are we really trying to pursue? We're trying to create an environment where people are experiencing God in worship and fellowship. We're trying to let people, so we want to sing songs that are strong. People become what they sing. And so I would focus, instead of how much light is too light or how much smoke is enough, I think if we ask higher questions, it'll keep us from debating about things that don't matter as much.
Well, Dr. Dav, you know everything.
All the things.
All the things. Sorry,
That's different than
it's different.
everything. All the
That's
things.
right. Dav
Yeah.
knows all the things.
Dr.
Dav knows all the things. And I like that you know all the things because now I have someone that I can ask questions
Everyone
to.
understands that this is a mixture of hubris and humor.
Yeah.
'Cause my wife thought it up because, it's funny.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny to say that you know all the things.
Because if you just said conversations or between the ferns or whatever, you would get caught in the white noise. And so there's a title that says, hey, this doesn't sound like every other thing.
That's right.
Maybe it'll bug someone enough to listen to it.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
and then
all the things.
After that, they'll be captured by my handsome appearance, and then it'll be over.
And
The worldwide audience will increase.
Well, thank you for joining us. Thank you for doing the deep dive into your messages. This
Brought to you by Celsius.
Yeah, Celsius.
Can we get monetized for that?
We can.
By Celsius?
I mean,
penalized.
we're hoping that someone will reach out to us, business owners.
Celsius.
Anyone? Well, thank you for joining us for Dr. Dav
want
Knows All the
Jesus.
Things. We'll see you next week.
See you next time.
That's a wrap on another insightful episode with Dr. Dav. If today's conversation was meaningful, would you share it with a friend and help spread the word? For more information about Heritage, visit our website at heritagenw.org. Grace and peace to you in the mighty name of Jesus.